Morning, everyone. Our quarterly meeting from the Louisiana Development Disability Council will come to order. I just want to welcome everyone and tell everyone, thank you for allowing me to be your acting chair. And I hope that we're able to do some very good work here, work together and move forward for the system change that we need for our council. And also just keep in mind who you're here for. So keep in mind who you're here for, you know. We want to always be homage to the people that we're here to speak out for if they can for themselves. All right. Amy, can I get you to do a roll call for me, please?
Ms. Earhart.
Present.
Dr. Barabecchio.
Here.
Ms. Bazil.
Present.
Ms. Bayham. Ms. Kosei. Ms. Crane. Ms. Eagley. Here. Ms. Gonzalez. Ms. Hagan. Here. Ms. Hano.
Here.
Ms. Farman.
Here.
Ms. Email. Ms. Jordan. Dr. McKee. Ms. Polizzola.
Here.
Ms. Richard. Here. Mr. Rocca.
Here.
Ms. Stewart. Ms. Tarver. Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Washington.
Here.
Ms. Webb.
Here.
Dr. Wilson. You have a quorum.
All right. At this time, we'll have Amy read our mission statement and Ms. Kim read our role.
The mission statement of the Developmental Disabilities Council is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion of Louisianians with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and change.
Good morning. Our ground rules. Members must be recognized by the chair before speaking, be respectful of each other's opinions, break for 10 minutes every 1.5 hours, discuss council business in a responsible manner, except as necessary, restrict the use of electronic communication, for example, texting, during council and committee meetings, silence or turn off all cell phones. Mission statement is posted at every meeting. Be on time for meeting. No alphabet. Side conversation are kept to a minimum, done quietly, and restricted to the subject at hand.
Okay, I just want to add to when she says no alphabet, you know, we're all used to think our just the alphabet of what we are, but if we can please refrain from that and say your whole organization name, because they have some people on here that are new, that don't know all the accolades, so we can just pull that and let everyone know your whole organization name. Thank you. Okay, so the next item of business is the approval of the meeting summary. The draft of January 19th. The memory summary was distributed. The summary would not be read unless requested by a member. Are there any corrections? If there is no objection, the meeting summary is approved as distributed. All right, hearing none, the meeting summary is approved. It is.
I might be the wrong folder. Then that's the wrong folder.
I think it's in here.
They're working in the wrong folder. Then
Oh, it's the wrong folder.
That's our problem.
There you go. Usually the agenda and then the meeting summary.
All right, has everybody had a chance to review? All right. The meeting summary is approved. Since we sharing no objection. All right, our next item of business is our executive director's report. The chair recognizes the senior deal report.
Everybody,
Yeah.
so there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. My report is included in the packet for everybody. I'm gonna talk about things that I wanted to give a couple of announcements and then talk about our legislative advocacy agenda. We're in session right now, so I want everybody to know where we stand with all of our advocacy items. So, a couple of announcements. Dr. McKee was not able to attend today, but she had made a motion in October of 22 at that meeting. And it was approved by the full council that said that the full council would be trained, have a DEI training, the diversity, equity, and inclusion training by the end of April. We are currently at the end of April.
Yes.
A training provider has been selected. It took a while we had to get a number of different quotes and proposals. So we are ready to proceed, but it's not going to happen by the end of April. So her hope was that people would be okay with moving that deadline back to October of this year. I can't ask for a motion or anything, but that's just what she. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. Let's see, financial disclosure forms are due May 15th. So if you've not completed yours, please let us know. We can help you get that completed. You've likely received a couple of different forms of communication about the financial disclosure. There is a disability policy seminar that happens on April 24. It is a virtual training, one day. If you are interested in
April 24th or April of 24.
April 24th, Monday.
Oh, okay, I was excited when it was April 24.
If you are interested in attending or finding out more about it, let me know. And then I also wanted to mention that the nominating committee will need to be appointed very soon. And the nominating committee is charged with figuring out a slate of nominees for the next executive committee officers. Those next executive committee officers will take office October 1st. So nominating committee meets in between the April council meeting and the July council meeting to discuss the options, make recommendations, and find out whether the people that they would like to nominate would actually accept nominations. And then that slate of potential officers is presented to the full council at the July meeting, and the full council votes. And that's how the next officer. In your packet, you should have a list of the different officers that we have on our executive committee. And it gives a brief description of what each officer does. Please review it. And see if that is something that you're interested in accepting a nomination for. People on the nominating committee need to be people who are not interested in accepting a nomination so that there's no conflict. So if you know that you are not wanting to accept a nomination for executive committee next term, please let me know. I'll take a list of names and that will help the chair know who to appoint for nominating committee. And then, like I said, review the different officers, and the descriptions of what they do. And then nominating committee will start their work pretty soon after that. Now talk about the council's legislative advocacy. We had 4 items on the agenda. The first one is funding incontinence supplies for adult with disabilities and the IDD waivers. We partnered with the ARC of Louisiana to work on this agenda item. And we met with the department multiple times. We met with Julie and her, met with Melinda and her team. We met with Tara LeBlanc at Medicaid team. We had a lot of meetings. In the end, the department decided that they were going to make this change without a bill being necessary. So OCDD is currently working to
What?
funding incontinence supplies
Oh, okay.
and waivers. So Julie and her team are currently working on making the necessary changes to the waivers to be able to allow for this to be covered. In the new opportunities waiver and the residential. Yes, options waiver. They did not require CMS approval to make this change. So the changes will happen in those 2 waivers sooner. Julie, is it still a July
So
project?
we hope so, as all things, when we started trying to figure out how to enact it. It doesn't require a waiver change, but it will require us figuring out how the payments are made to the providers for the incontinent briefs and supplies. So we're not ready to say, no, it won't have, we had the target date of July 1. We still have a target date of July 1, but just alerting folks that as we've already started working towards implementation because we have to make changes in our billing system and things like that. We're running into some issues that we're having to investigate further. But it doesn't require waiver changes, so that's more internal. So we are still shooting for that, but it may be pushed back 30 days if we can't figure that out. And then in the supports waiver, we got our supports waiver back approved. So we're looking at adding that into the supports waiver, but we have a few other amendments that we're also trying to do in the supports waiver. So we hope to get that to CMS soon. And then we'll be able to roll that out after we get approval from CMS. So that's probably more like a 4 to 6 month timeline in the supports waiver.
Any questions about that agenda item? Eric?
Is it true that y'all trying to make the waivers all at one waiver?
It is true that we started trying to make it all one waiver 5 years ago and we've not been successful with it. There's a lot that we have to do and, when we got we've talked in here a lot about the American Rescue Plan Act dollars it's called the Section 9817, which is the part of the American Rescue Plan Act that has to do with the home and community-based services. As long as we are getting money through them, we have to do something called a maintenance of effort, which means you can't make substantial changes without them questioning it, because it might look like we're taking things away from people.
Right.
And so because of that maintenance of effort, I don't imagine that we'll be able to even really start thinking about one consolidated waiver until we get past that March of 2025. However, what we are trying to do is take at least our 3 adult waivers, and we're trying to make the services in those 3 adult waivers as similar as possible, with some changes to the rates and the service definitions when we do those waiver amendments. So hopefully by the time we get where we're ready to go to one or maybe two, what we call consolidated waivers, it's already gonna look pretty similar. So it in nature, so it won't be as hard to show. When you do any changes, you have to show a crosswalk and you have to show show CMS, how people aren't losing things. So we're trying to make it simpler within our waivers now, which is kind of a step to get us to the consolidated waiver. But we have been probably more than 5 years. We've probably been talking about it for about 7 years. And we did hear from stakeholders that they would like to have a consolidated waiver to make it more efficient and just easier to navigate our system. So since we weren't able to do that, we're looking for other ways to make that efficient and easier to navigate in our system.
Okay. The waivers for the kids, are y'all doing any changes with them or y'all just?
There's been a few changes with the children's choice waiver. And we have, those are more along the lines of, well, all of them will have family members able to be paid caregivers. But with the children's choice waiver, it's always been more flexible than our adult waivers. You know, we have the services and then there's a budget. And so you can sort of use whatever you need to in the children's choice within that budget. But we have made some changes, like being able to share across waivers and things like that have applied to children's choice. So it's not that there's no changes, but there's more. And that's what, to be honest, when I said one, maybe two, as we initially looked at having one consolidated waiver. There's some reasons why we would want to do that. There's some reasons why we might want to have two and have one waiver for children and have one waiver for adults. Because there's just some differences in terms of the children have access to EPSDT through Medicaid.
Right.
So they have access to more what we call state plan services than adults do. And so, but we'll get back to that conversation probably in the next year or two, but we're not actively working to consolidate it into one waiver right now.
One more question. Have y'all making any changes with the providers, like the case manager being more noticeable of the abuse going on with adults and being making more attention aware of that?
So during COVID, we had a lot of virtual. I mean, we did virtual till today, right here. So one of the things we are doing is having more back in the home. And we feel like when you're back in the home, as opposed to virtual, there will be the opportunity to see some of those things that we may have missed before. For example, even if you can see on the phone, we now know when you go into the home, sometimes you can tell that the living conditions aren't what they need to be to promote health and safety of the waiver participant. You can't easily see by phone if a person has enough food in their home for what they need. And so by having returning to those in-person visits, now that the public health emergency is scheduled to end, we're hoping that it'll start to help us be able to catch some of those things earlier again, like we did before COVID.
One more thing, y'all pushing the waivers to get people out the nursing home?
Yeah, we are under a Department of Justice settlement agreement that says we will get people out of nursing homes that want to and are able to get out of nursing.
Is the last thing. I'm personally think that couldn't use family members, but I think it need more training with the workers of coming in the homes. Are y'all thinking about more training for workers to get home?
Sure.
I know it's about pay.
Yeah.
Everything is around pay, and I think it needs more training with the workers.
We're actually in the process, and we're almost ready to roll it out, where we will have several training opportunities for direct support workers. A lot of that, we have different modules that we'll be using. Some of it is around person-centered practices, helping people have more meaningful activities in their day. There are some things like recognizing signs and symptoms of illness, recognizing signs and symptoms of abuse and neglect. And we have several different modules that we've developed that we're gonna offer webinar opportunities so that direct support staff can virtually be able to attend that. Not that there's others out there, but it is oftentimes at a cost. So one of the things providers told us is if we had up-to-date current best practice training that they could use for direct support workers, they still have to pay them for their time while they're taking the training, but then they're not having to pay for the training. So we're very close. Within the next month or two, we should be rolling all of those training opportunities out, and we'll do them multiple times throughout the year with our staff that we have in UCD.
Ms. Jill,
Miss Julie, I recently got something in Uptown about Appendix K. What's up, what is that about all of them?
So that would take me the entire council meeting to tell you all of it,
Well,
Jill.
I mean, people have to go back by
Yeah.
next month. I'm
No.
concerned.
So I would encourage everybody, we did do several in-person meetings. And then we had a webinar that we recorded. I believe it's on our website. I'd probably need to confirm that, but the intent was for us to put it on our website. It's actually a 2-hour presentation that goes through all of the Appendix K waiver changes. So it goes through and tells you this is what was happening with waivers before COVID. This is what we've been doing the last 3 years during COVID. And this is what we're going to be doing now when we get to November. The only thing that ends in May is the virtual case management services in the new opportunities waiver, because those are in state plan. All of the other exceptions in our waiver will continue through November, but that presentation goes into detail about all of that.
okay,
Excuse me. And my dad was in that meeting.
Ms. Jill, we're gonna wait until after, she gives her report to have these questions so that we can move right along upon our agenda. So we're gonna table that until it's time for you to
I'm
get your
sorry, I'm
report.
just on the edge because my dad went to the meeting for the OCDD reads and it looks like DSPs, that funding that the legislative was supposed to give. The DSP, they didn't give it to no DSP. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
just feeling a little hype right now.
okay.
Okay, and again, I want to remind everybody to be respectful of all of our times here because we do have a lot of agenda items to go through. So can we respect what we are going, the subject that we're talking about? And if we have to hold it until the actual report until after lunch, then that's what we have to do.
Can you say?
Okay,
No.
All right. The second agenda item is recurring funding for families helping family centers. So just as a reminder, we have $507,517 that occurs every year in our budget for families helping family centers. It's state fund money, state general fund. The last 2 years, we've advocated for an additional $500,000 for a total of $1,507,000. I'm sorry, $1,007,000. And all of that money is distributed equally to the 9 FHF centers that we contract. Every year when I make my budget request to the department, that funding is in, asking for them to annualize it. But every year it gets taken out. Because when it's amended in by legislators, it's usually put in as one-time funds, which is what has happened the last couple of years. So this year we're asking, once again, for the money to be amended back in, but also for there to be language that says that this money needs to be recurring and just in our budget every year. So we have, we've gone to House Appropriations a couple of times on this issue. And we have 3 separate representatives who have said that they will amend it in. So it'll be a race to see which one does it first, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get this in, as there are a number of different representatives who said they'll do it. The third item is funding for post-secondary inclusive education fund. And the ask was to add an additional $3 million to the fund, which was created last year. We are, right now, that money is not in the budget. The rumor is that it will appear in the supplemental budget. But the supplemental budget has not been released yet. So we're waiting for that. But we do have a fail-safe. If it's not in the supplemental budget, Senator Boudreaux has agreed again to make sure that he gets the money amended in. So we're in a really good position with that one too. Hopefully the money is just in the supplemental budget, but if not, Senator Boudreaux is gonna make sure he makes an amendment. And then the final one is amending open meetings law to allow for virtual participation. We have worked with Senator Hewitt on this a lot. She chaired a task force that came out of last legislative session that was about this. And we've done a number of yellow shirt days. We've done 3 so far in between the task force and then this item was just heard in Senate and Governmental Affairs on Tuesday. And so we did a yellow shirt day again. The Developmental Disabilities Council stands in a very good place within the proposed bill or the proposed amendment. We currently have a carve out that would allow our council to meet. They call it remotely, but it's really more of a hybrid because you do have to have a physical anchor location. It's not 100% remote. But we would be able to do that 100% of the time. Other wording in the bill does not allow that for every board and council. So we have a carve out. The intent was that they were going to make a list of all of the different boards and commissions that had something to do with people with disabilities. Blanket. The list that they have so far is not comprehensive. A list has been submitted to them, but it has not been amended in. So there is a request for that broader list to be amended in. But there's also been a request to actually take the list out and instead make the wording more general and say, basically any board or commission that that has something to do with disabilities would be able to meet virtually 100% of the time. But that amendment,
Primarily focused on disability,
right,
because a lot of boards maybe have a little bit about disability, so its primary focus is disability.
Yeah.
And that has Bill 201. Yeah.
yes.
Senate Bill.
Senate Bill 201.
Thank you.
And so anyway, we stand in a good place. Personally, our council, there is still a little bit more work to be done to try to get some of the other councils that also primarily work with disabilities to also have the same capabilities. But I believe that amendment will be made. She's very open to doing it. It just has not happened yet. Let's see, there are other groups who are very interested in this bill and are pushing to make some additional changes. Nothing that should affect us, but broadening it up to allow for other groups, like groups that deal with early childcare, for them to be able to have the same consideration of virtual. So we'll have to see. It still has a ways to go in the process, but it is heard on the Senate floor, right, Brenton, next Monday. On Monday. So it can be through. Any questions about that? If it passes, it does not take effect until August. So just FYI. Okay.
Just gonna say there will be an alert that goes out today. If you are interested in this particular issue, contact your senator. So look out for that.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Amy. Are there any questions from the council members on the reports? Are there any comments in the chat box? Oh, yeah, that's right. The report requires no action and will be placed on file. All right, the next item of business is the budget report, and the chair recognizes Ms. Amy DeVille for the report.
You do have a copy of the budget report in your packet. Um. So we are currently about 3/4 into the state fiscal year. So when you're looking at, if you're looking at you should mainly be seeing percentages somewhere in between 50 and 75%. Our salary percentages are going to run a little lower because we were not fully staffed until January of this year. Our total travel, of course, is down too, because we have not had 100% in-person meetings, which is what the majority of our travel budget is for. Our operating services are right in line. You'll see 1% for dues and subscriptions. That's at 93% use, meaning we don't have very much money left in there. That's by design. We pay one national organization for councils of developmental disabilities. And that's already gone out. And then when we're looking at contracts, we're at about 51% usage. That's expected to, it usually takes our contractors a little bit of time to get going. So a lot of the billing happens on the back end of the fiscal year. We should be receiving more bills and a lot more of that money spent. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions about that?
All right, thank you, Amy. Are there any questions from the council members on the report? All right, we'll find one question and we'll be. All right, the next item of business is our committee reports. Our first report is from the planning committee, and the chair recognizes Ms. Barry Thorne for the report.
Okay, thank you, guys. I filled in as chairperson for Rashad whenever after his departure, and I appreciate Angela Harmon, Libby Aber, Renato Washington, Eric Taylor, and Jill Hano for participating in what was a really good. Who else?
What?
You last, yeah. Well, I mean, you're on this side of me. So appreciate. It really had a good, engaging conversation. And I think we came up with a good recommendation. So the draft plan that the committee approved has been included in your packet.
It may not actually be in, it might have been on top of or on the side of.
Should be on the top of the
But it
desk.
should look like this. If anybody doesn't have a copy, let me know, because I have some.
Just to highlight the major changes, the committee agreed with staff recommendations and feels the following activities should be discontinued. And they are activity 1.1.5, which was to produce and disseminate videos and other visual materials featuring information important to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. And to discontinue activity 1.1.6, which is to provide financial support for promotion, awareness, training, and support in the implementation of supported decision-making. And that amount was $50,000 in the current budget, and the previous item was for $36,000 in the current budget. Activity 3.1.1 was to provide financial support to establish the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Alliance, to provide mentoring and technical assistance, host trainings, events, and develop resources designed to build capacity for Louisiana post-secondary institutions in providing inclusive post-secondary education opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout Louisiana. And the current amount in the budget is $40,000. And then the last item that we're recommending to be discontinued for next year is activity 3.2.1. And that one was to provide financial support to conduct seminars with chambers of commerce throughout the state on the benefit of hiring people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that is $39,000 in the current year budget. Okay, additional activities that the committee recommends discontinuing do not have funding attached and can be found in the draft plan included in your packet, or that was on top of your packet. The committee also decided to increase the funding for activity 1.1.2, which is LACAN. And so currently it's 215, and the committee is recommending to bump it up to 240,000, I should say. For the following reasons: to ensure LACAN leaders receive competitive wages, to cover cost of living, mileage, and supply cost increases due to inflation, to help with recruitment of new leaders in vacant positions, and to assist with professional development costs. The next activity, which is activity 1.1.9, which is our youth leadership forum, which is funded for $30,000 this year, but the committee is recommending to move that up to $45,000 for the following reasons: to be able to pay staff members, to be able to increase the number of delegates or participants, and to increase the number of days for the forum, and to achieve the American Camp Association accreditation. With those changes, the committee was left with $147,000 for new activities. The committee decided to add the following activities based on recommendations from the standing committee, staff, and proposals sent to the council. These activities include to provide financial support, technical assistance, to educate and train individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities on voting awareness, rights, and accessibility. And the suggested funding is $30,000. The second addition that we're recommending is to provide financial support for training to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities on how to navigate the developmental disability, behavioral health, and Medicaid managed care organization systems. And the suggested funding for that is $30,000. And then last recommendation of a new item is to provide financial support to build capacity for advocacy regarding education and employment. And the suggested funding for that is $87,000. The planning committee approved the draft plan for federal fiscal year 2024 action plan, and offers this draft for the full council's consideration. Any questions? Yes, Vivian.
Why was activity 2.1.2 taken out?
2.1.2, what is that? Activity 2.1.2 is being added.
No, I think she's talking about the sexual education.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that was one that we considered. There was just concerns about the implementation of it. And we, like we said, we had 147,000, and that was one of the other three that I talked about in this one. And so just because the amount of funding was limited, and there was some hesitation on how to go about implementing it, where the other three, so for instance, the other three that I said, like the voting, we actually have a bill that's coming, a couple of bills that are coming through that's going to make some pretty significant changes to accessibility around voting. So we feel like it's like on the, right now we need to get it into training so people can learn about these new accessibilities or ways to be able to identify like voting barriers. So that's something that was like kind of, I guess, time sensitive. And then regarding the training around like dual diagnosis, people with developmental and behavioral health, people felt like that's something that we're hearing people are really, really struggling with whenever they have dual diagnosis, and people not knowing where to get the support that they need. And then for the one about building the capacity around education and employment, the committee felt that was like something that really needed people, we need to increase our advocacy in education and employment because people are really struggling with the issues around appropriate access to education. And so those three kind of rose to be like the most, word I'm looking for,
Highest priority.
yeah, highest priority. And it was pretty clear how to go about implementing that and how to get engagement from the groups, whereas the one about the sexual education, it wasn't necessarily something that people heard as much about. And it was kind of how do you engage young people when you couldn't go through the school system?
Could we do it through ABA?
What is ABA?
Service providers, like behavioral therapy, that's.
Honestly, one issue that I hear is that teenagers are often can't get into the BCBA and ABA services. That's another issue that I hear.
Well, another big problem with just like scratching that out instead of like trying to implement it is the fact that this could be life-changing for several individuals, especially because people with developmental disabilities can be taken advantage of way easier than other people. And they need to know like their boundaries, to respect others' boundaries, and to really learn about all of that. And it's change, it's new, and I think it's something that's really important that we need to discuss and have. It makes the difference between someone being labeled as a sex offender later in their life when they haven't actually, they don't understand and they didn't really do much. But if sex education could have fixed that, then shouldn't we do this? Because it could make like a big difference.
Our kids in the school system do not take the same classes for sex education and science and health that our special education kids do. So why is that? I mean,
It shouldn't be.
it shouldn't be, but
That's a
they don't,
education.
yeah, they don't take the health class that the sex education is taught in. They're not allowed to take the science. So that right there would eliminate this whole one if they would have a class.
But they should have access to science. So wherever they're getting their science instruction.
In our pro curriculum, this is not in our science curriculum.
So that's an education
Yes.
issue, not I think, I don't know if anybody else has opinions on that.
It's, yeah.
Two questions, because I maybe was getting to what I was getting to. If it is an education issue, and I'm not saying, and like, I don't wanna say this in place blame, because I never know the solution. I just know book stuff, but can it be in IEPs that my kid goes to PE? Because I only went to public school till 8th grade. So, I mean, this was a while back, but like, so special ed students went to regular PE and then, or if not, they went to adapted PE. So why isn't adapted PE taught this? And then another thing, like, cause I, like, the best, if a student is best, if a student is in special ed and being excluded from this, that's one thing. But if a student is a child, because I was irregular, I'm gonna cry. I was in regular in my whole life. Like I had 5 IEPs, but you know, my mom is awesome. Like I was in my mom fought tooth and nail. I was 504 in regular age until I went to a Catholic high school. But so like if there are kids with disabilities in regular ed, or they still being excluded from these types of programs like hey, Agnes, you have to sit down while we talk about this submission, because it's one thing bad enough that the state students are not getting taught this, that we need to fit in yourself. But like if anyone in record PE not getting taught this, then because my PE teacher would teach me how to drive, and I'm still mad at her.
So the answer is that if it's in the curriculum, every kid should have access to it unless their IEP
And they don't.
specifically says.
Nonverbal, they don't understand what sex ed is about.
There's ways to teach people
And what is something
nonverbal.
at the school that somebody rates it? That's like the awful thing. Like, they wouldn't know what to do, and then it's like parents are concerned and they rate a nonverbal and then they lie down and something bad happens. I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, and that's the point of this sexual education, is to teach people about their bodies, teach them about what's appropriate touching, what's appropriate behavior. And that's really, because sometimes we had this discussion yesterday in the meeting, and also the issue, I think Vivian brought up, sometimes our people with disabilities, they're going through puberty or whatever, and they may want to act out in a certain way, and they don't have the social understanding to know when they can do certain things that are not considered, you can't do in public. And so this type of training would approach both of those things when they're a victim, or if they have some behaviors that they need to understand when is appropriate place.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an issue with education, that every kid should have access to the same thing that all other kids have access to, whether they're in a special education setting or in regular. And to answer your question, if a kid is in a regular education class where that's being taught, they should not be removed unless there's some decision made by their IEP committee. But the other issue is, and why it's so difficult in education, is that the state of Louisiana doesn't require sex ed for all kids. Each parish decides that.
Okay.
So this would go through the parish? The parish would have to.
Right. The state, the Department of Education has no control over that. That's a.
So the power, like if they have the parish, special advisory panel and the school board, right?
Yeah.
So I think everything in this is something I thought as we were talking yesterday, that since it's by parents, advocacy needs to be done for this, the way that the cameras in the classrooms were done, like by parents, because I think I'm saying the wrong thing.
Maybe, like we had in
You can come to the table
cameras.
if you have a, yeah.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, and then I saw that every district has different camera policy, so like it makes it to be similar to that, but this is, I mean, this is, people can't get away with this.
So we have Eric,
Okay.
hand raised, and then we have a public comment after.
I think
Okay,
it's,
Eric.
I think it's being too broad. I mean, it's already out there. It's being too broad. I mean, it's a lot of information out there with it already. It's so many parts to that to even touch that.
You touch it regular,
Right.
Yeah,
and as a teacher, I'm dealing with it right now every day.
Right, but then it goes to, even though if you still gotta go through the parents to get them to sign it to say, okay, it's fine for my child
Okay.
to be there in that class. And if you don't, and some parents don't feel comfortable letting their children be in that, it's a broad situation. There's so many parts to that. And that's a touchy situation to, I know it, if I'm making any sense to y'all.
Well, and I think there is a curriculum. I mean, it can be taught. The issue is we're not gonna be able to do it through the school system. That's too, it's too disjointed. So the other way to go about it is to somehow reach out to this age population and get them to attend some type of training. And that to me is where the barrier is, like, will we be able to reach those people, and will it have the capacity to help?
And it needs to be done before they finish high school, because now I already have some that have had children. Dealing with it now in my classroom where they don't understand the relationship issues, and we find them kissing and, and they think they're just friends. They don't know. So, you have to report it, and it's a lot. So you have that mix of, they don't know what's appropriate, but they want to be appropriate because they see everybody, else. And so having to report everything, and it's a lot, believe me.
And so do you think, though, going about it and having some contractor to do some type of training, that those kids will be reached? Will those parents?
Not after high school. It would
No,
have
but
to be-
you can't do it in school. So you'd have to reach those kids in a way that the parents bring them out of after school or allow. So that's our point,
But
that
if
you're
they
not
teach it
reaching
in
them.
Regular education, why can't they teach it for a special
yeah,
education?
this is literally a double standard. Sorry.
Mr. Eric had the floor, and I just was allowing the conversation and dialogue to
No,
happen.
I'm through with it. I
Okay.
mean, I'm fine with it, but
Okay.
I'm through.
And I have one more, and that's,
Vivian?
yeah, I see Miss Vivian down there.
So it sounds like the real issue is the fact that our special education students do not have access to the same curriculum or materials that our regular education students have. We could knock out several birds with one stone if instead of just sex ed, we did it broader and said that we want our special education students to have an equal education and equal access to the same curriculum and same learning materials that regular education students have. Because that sounds like the real problem. Like, it includes sex ed, but also everything else.
Are you in public?
Well,
Oh, I didn't.
Mindy,
Okay, the chair recognizes your name.
Mindy Richard,
Okay, Ms.
yes,
Mindy.
look, this is just logistics. I'm trying to get to know everybody. If you guys could turn your cards around so we can see your names.
Oh
that would be
my God.
So, I don't know. Thank you so much.
The only non-member of the council has her facing correct.
Thank you, not to call it out, but thank you for that. Appreciate it.
All right, and we have a public comment.
I don't, but Jill, I think.
I'm sorry, I think the public comment was Lillian was the first one. I saw.
It was.
Okay.
I mean, you can never touch that. You're right. I think a lot of people, or at least in our state, across the country, are really, really scared to talk about sexuality of people with disabilities because of the overlying assumption that people with disabilities are asexual, especially our youth. I had the opportunity to visit, another YLAP Youth Leadership Forum in another state for a couple years now, and they do a really intentional effort to do 2 sessions based around sexuality. And they pull in a professor from their local university that teaches human sexuality to structure it. Part of that is an open Q&A where delegates submit questions anonymously, and the other part is kind of like an STD, STD education part. And the questions that were submitted were pretty startling because we have high school students with disabilities who were excluded from the sexual education at their school. So there were 18-year-olds asking how babies, despite the fact that these students are interested in getting into relationships, but there's a lack of understanding of, basic mechanisms, or even we had, nonverbal individuals asking questions about consent and how to navigate that. And so as Vivian mentioned, this is a more vulnerable population, especially whenever you consider the fact that often things are done to youth with disabilities, not in the sexual form, but in educational settings and medical settings, decisions are made without them. And so with a lack of sex ed, that sort of lesson moves over into their relationship life, right? So it really seems kind of silly to me to eliminate funding for this, especially considering all the bills that are being passed currently with internet censorship, with book censorship, and the already conservative state where youth with disabilities do not have access to this information. We know that this is a phenomenon across the country, but I think with the funding that we have with the DP Council, you guys have an opportunity to make a bit of a change there and put some protective measures in place so our youth with disabilities can lead empowered lives that we're trying to encourage them to live, but we can't do that if we don't have the proper information. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, is there any more discussion from the council members on 2023 action plan?
Well, we have any other public comment?
Mimi. Oh, I'm sorry, Mimi, come on.
No, I'm just gonna expand what Jill was trying to say. I think she was likening it to the way we had the districts draw up the individual policies regarding cameras. Perhaps adding it in somehow that way, require the districts to address the problem overall, however it ends up being worded. There are a couple of ways to handle as far as like addressing it, adding it into the standards in one way. I don't know if we do that, with our science classes, but adding into the standards and would be one thought. But having to develop a policy to address the problem might be another. So that's just.
So, you want to finish?
Yeah, any more public comment?
Hi, I'm Dr. Marilyn, going to with families, helping families, Greater Baton Rouge. And I just want to echo what Jill said. One of the things that I want to both being from families, helping families is for you guys not to overlook the fact that these organizations or centers across the state can help with that issue of training making that available for the parents and self-advocates across the board dealing with the whole sexuality issue, because that's what we do. So don't overlook that, but also consider adding additional monies and responsibilities for families helping families to be able to address that as an outside entity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole, I'm so sorry. I have one more question.
You recognize?
Do regular ed students, cause I am very conservative and nerd. Do regular ed students have to get a signed consent form?
Yes.
Then why can I say Cal?
No.
And why can't you? What is missing, like, send the consent form to all the students, like, I don't know, Nicole, move on, man.
All right, thank you.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so, I mean, hearing that testimony, I mean, it seems like it's pretty compelling, and just to, around the sexual education, pretty compelling testimony, particularly from our youth, that would fall in this population. So I want to value their voices and that they're saying how important this is. And we thought it was very important, but as I said, the issue was how do you reach this age group when we know that going through the school system is not an option? And so, maybe we need to change that activity to something else, I mean, I don't know. I want to open up the floor to have discussion about that.
So if I could just step in, so your current motion that's on the floor, because it came from the planning committee, is to approve the 24 annual work plan as is. If somebody makes a modification to that, then this motion has to be denied, and then you need to re-motion.
Okay.
Did we already pass? No.
So the planning
No.
committee passed it. And so
Well,
the planning
we
committee
did not.
right to the full council.
Okay. Cool.
But, can I say?
But, so it can be entertained, like Ms. Amy was saying, it could be entertained with this motion, but if we don't all agree on it, then it dies and someone else can entertain another motion.
So,
And then we could go back, if there's no change, we
Right.
can go back and do this motion as originally.
Right.
so if this fails, then you can make a motion to change, like, whatever activity or objective you want, correct?
Anybody care?
Okay.
So if the council wants to have more discussion about this item, we would just have to,
Okay, so I was told that we can just amend that and like, instead of taking it out, just put it back in, like amend it. And then we can move forward.
oh, okay.
So
So,
that'll make it a little bit easier instead of reconvening, meeting and you have to do all that again just to take that one section out. It's
No,
just
it wouldn't require any.
Okay,
They would do it here.
okay.
There's, no matter what, there's definitely like the planning and committee is done, so whatever we're gonna amend to the plan is done today by the full council.
Correct. So I'm open to entertain a motion.
So the
amendment?
motion is already on the floor.
Or amendment.
At this point, you can ask if there are any objections and that would then that would open it up for amendments if that's what the council would like.
You want to object? If you want to object to have a discussion about this item, somebody needs to object.
I object this motion.
Thank you.
Okay,
Go Viv.
Also, could we put the motion up on like the screen? Like what the motion?
Yes, Ebony, can you stop sharing, please?
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I do. It's just still up there. It's a delay.
So now you can discuss whatever amendments you might want to make, or someone can motion to make an amendment.
Can you put it back on the screen so we can see what we took out? I'll make a motion to change it, activity 2.1.2 to provide financial support for training of individuals, and I'm actually reading the wording from the next one, but provide financial support for training to individuals, for to high school age, middle school and high school age students with, well, I don't like students. I would just put individuals, they might not be. Middle school and high school, students with intellectual.
And they could have this done during their life skills program. It could be done during that. Not necessarily,
okay, so we currently have a motion on the floor.
Okay, so provide financial support to provide appropriate accessible sexual education to middle and high school aged people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
I do like students because even though they may not necessarily be under 18, they're still students. Right?
They may not be in school.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So we don't want to
we're
make it.
not- Okay,
Okay, so
sorry.
motion on the floor.
Yes.
We need a second. All right, it was second. Okay, yeah, you have your face. Thank you.
Trying to help me.
Can you put it up there in more clear language for us?
No, just what is provide
Right.
financial support?
Right.
To whom?
What that means
That's
is
what I
we would have to search for a contractor. And a contractor would have to develop and then provide this.
How would we disseminate this? I mean, to distribute this, like if you're,
The same, the training
you're
or
training, it would just be on like a website, or how would that, what would that look like? I'm not sure.
that would be up to the contractor, how they
Okay.
advertise it, what formats they use to provide the training.
Okay.
Ashley.
I think, discussion needs to happen around school systems allowing one individual to come in. The likelihood of that happening is not very likely.
It's not gonna be through school, like, they have to be clear, this is gonna be outside of school.
And then,
Yes.
Please state your name.
April,
Thank you.
they send us, things for, right?
So why can't they send something virtually for the student with disabilities where the parent can be there and then we can give feedback like at the end, like a survey or I don't know, a test if the student was able to take a test. I just think that the kids with disabilities need that, and if you're offering it to regular students, then it could be offered with consent from the parent, through like a virtual or something like that, or some, I don't know what y'all system is.
Chromebooks and in person. We do both.
So, I mean, would that be something that they can entertain?
Maybe so. I mean, it just depends on the school system and the school itself. I mean, I would have no problem. As long as they're getting something.
Yeah, I think they need something more structured, but you know, a parent. I mean, you know your kid or whatever, but if you have a program or something for the parents to be, you know, to have something to follow. That's
And just to be clear, if a school system is not giving a kid with an IEP with a disability access to the same curriculum, then they're in violation of federal law. Like, that's the issue. It's not about sex ed, it's about school systems not doing what they're supposed to do. That's a different issue than what we're talking about right now.
School district in the state could benefit from a state training on just now every school definition in a letter in big bold letter in big bold paper, just the pure it's not meant over the topic per se. I meant because this is so basic, like male every school district a big bold definition of state. That's it.
Okay, we have another public comment.
Too much.
My name is Nicole Dejon. Maybe the resolution to the current discussion would be, instead of funding something right now, it would be more research the best way to approach this. Maybe do some, research to see what the trends are across the country. If we're going to do kind of an external thing from the school system, what would be the best way to reach the population that we're looking to reach and to disseminate the information, and maybe some way that other areas are partnering with families to support that information. Just a thought. So maybe that would be the current.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have it second. Now we are gonna do a roll call vote. We've heard discussion, so we're gonna go ahead and do a roll call vote upon our 2023 action plan.
But
So
can we have this, I mean, we just had a comment
Right.
that I would like to hear from the council. Do y'all want to fund it or do y'all want to do?
I like what she said.
Study resolution.
Yeah, research.
Okay,
Because a study resolution would get
have hands so that we can recognize you all while you speak, because we do have the YouTube and they do want to know who is speaking. So just raise your hand so we can recognize you in regards to this discussion.
I think my name is Eric Keller. I think we should do what the young lady just said at the end. Have a research of it and see what's out there before we even go forward with it, so we'll know what we facing. And that's all I have to say.
But I guess I'm wondering who's doing the research. I mean, we're not gonna fund it. Staff will do the research. Okay.
Okay, just to reiterate, Bambi's motion is to just change, like, to not take it out and to put it back in so that everyone is clear what we're actually voting on. this discussions can still be had at a later time in regards to the research and what we want to do as a council.
But that's a different thing. What I put as a motion was to provide financial support, which means we have to put funding behind it. And what Nicole Dejean recommended was research.
Research.
So that's a big difference. There's a funding, mine is fun, which I'm okay with. I'm okay if the council is okay with doing research, but that's just a technical difference.
Right now, this is your motion on the floor.
Right.
So you need to, the
Vote.
easiest way would be either roll call vote or you ask if anyone has objections to.
Okay, do we have any objections to this motion? Ms. Kim?
We need another motion.
Motion dies and we're here to entertain another one.
I want to motion what Nicole Dejean said.
Advanced practice.
I second.
And I second that. Or do you want a second, Ms. Patty? Or you?
Just. The wording meet or is there suggested change?
Can you read the motion first, please?
Yeah, the motion by Kim Bazil is to amend activity 2.1.2 to research best practices for providing appropriate accessible sexual education to middle and high school aged people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I second the motion.
Okay, can we just give me a pause for a second? Oh, okay. We could have to do a roll call vote, you guys. If the objection is on the floor from Mandy first motion, we still have to do a roll call vote. So we're gonna roll call vote upon this activity.
So this one that's highlighted in yellow is the one that's the roll call that we're voting on.
And it was objected by Ms. Kim.
I just withdraw that motion.
Okay, that's easier. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do a roll call vote upon the current motion that's upon there since Ms. Bambi Polazola withdrew her first one.
I have a question. Okay. So activity 2.1.2 originally was to advocate for sex ed. Then we made a new activity, 2.1.2, to provide financial support for IDD to navigate the developmental disability, behavioral health, and Medicaid managed care systems. And this one said 2.1.2
So
also.
what we'll do is we'll push this one back in as 2.1.2, and the one on the co-occurring disorders, the systems will become 2.1.3. It'll just push down. one.
How many activities? Then you have.
All right, so just for clarity, if you're, a yes vote means that you are in favor of amending this activity to research best practices for providing appropriate sexual education. And a vote for no means you are not in favor of the research activity. Ms. Earhart?
Yes.
Dr. Baravecchio?
Yes.
Ms. Bazile?
Yes.
Ms. Eagley?
Here. Sorry, mother. Oh. No.
That's a no for Ms. Eagley?
Yeah.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan stepped out. Ms. Hano?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Bolzola?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Rocca?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Yes.
With 12 yes votes, the motion passes.
Okay. All right, and so our motion is passed. And, we're gonna adopt the action plan for the 2023.
No.
So now, if there is no further discussion, there would need to be a new motion to accept the plan as amended. And then we'd have to vote on that.
We have to do a motion to.
Another motion
Motion.
for the amendment.
Okay.
So I'm here to attain a motion.
A motion to accept our little paragraph up there. I can't read it. To accept the draft of the
Plan.
2021 action plan
Oh, no.
as amended. Lovely. Or count.
You need a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. All right, and we're gonna do a roll call vote.
A vote of yes means that you accept the action plan as drafted, and a vote of no means that you
Oh,
do not.
okay. Okay.
Ms. Earhart? Yes. Dr. Baravecchio?
Yes.
Ms. Bazile?
I think I have to abstain.
Ms. Eagley?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan is not in. Ms. Hano?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Bolzola?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Rocca?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Yes.
With 12 yes votes, the motion passes.
Okay, so now since our motion has passed, then we are going to adapt the action plan with the amendment. For our 2023 action plan. Is there any more discussion? It's accepted.
2024.
All right, I'm sorry, 2024, I'm sorry. All right, now, at this time, we're gonna take our 10-minute break. And we're gonna be back in All right, the time is now 10:18, and the meeting will come to order. Our next item of business is the report on the membership committee, which I will present. Okay, so our membership committee, we met on the 13th, to choose self-advocates recommend for the full council for council membership. We currently have 4 self-advocate positions open. One of the seats being federally mandated that we have to provide a seat from an institution. The seat has not been filled by someone who is currently living in a institution or facility or has in a past, or it can be filled by a parent of someone that lives in institutional facility. The membership committee has asked the staff to continue outreach to fill that institutional facility seat, since we didn't feel the candidates that we had interviewed so far was a good fit for the council. The membership committee recommends Tony Pioni, Lauren Womack, and Mary Frances Avera to be recommended to the governor appointed for the council, to the council. In your packet, we have bios written by Mr. Tony, Lauren for your review. We wasn't able to get one from Miss Mary, but we can tell you that Mary Frances, she was a student at UL Post-Life Secondary Inclusive Education Program. She was very passionate about her outreach and just how it touched her and reached her when we interviewed her. So even though she didn't provide that, the people that interviewed her had a chance to, kind of get to know her. She's on a Student Government Association at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette Community Organization Committee, a member of the Beacon Club Disabilities Advocates Student Organization. She's also in Tri Sigma Sorority. So the membership committee motions to approve the recommendations of Tony Pioi, Lauren Womack, and Mary Frances Averera for government appointment to the DD Council.
And I will also say, I forgot to write it in the summary, but Pamela Darby is also being put forth as the alternate choice in case one of the other 3 candidates are not able to fulfill or not be governor appointed for some reason. That way we already have an.
All right, so at this time, I will take a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, could we enlarge the font just a little bit?
So just to be clear, we have to do a roll call vote, or are you looking?
No, we're just entertaining a motion to adopt the recommendation from the committee.
Well, we don't need a motion, right? If it comes from a committee, that means comes from 2 people. Or more than 2 people.
Oh, okay.
But don't we have to adopt
We do, we have to vote on it.
their, okay.
It will have.
It has to be a roll call vote. We have discussions, that's why we put in you guys' packet, their bio, so you can look at them.
cannot make a motion on behalf of someone else. We need to make.
Yo, if you're on the committee, you definitely can make an, thing. I just can't.
I motion.
All right. Mary Taylor has motion.
Do we have a second?
Do we have a second? Second. All right, it's second by Ms. Christie Gonzalez. Are there any objections?
No.
All right, do we have any public comment?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Jill.
are we, because I'm big on that, are we gonna be providing on the website a summary from that membership committee?
We will, I just haven't gotten it done.
Okay. I'm sorry. No, I'm not, because I apologize too much.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
Roll call vote?
yes.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Earhart? Yes. Dr. Baravecchio? Yes. Ms. Bazile?
Yes.
Ms. Eagley?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan? And it's still not in the room. Ms. Kano?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Bolzola?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Yes.
13 yes votes. It passes.
All right, adopt the motion and the recommendation is adopted and is passed. All right, the next item of business is our standing council membership reports. Please refer to the reports that were submitted via link on our agenda. Our first report is from the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disability. The chair, oh, she's not here, huh?
Yeah, she had to step out. So
Okay, I'm gonna move on to our next one.
Bill Wilson, done. Development Center.
Okay,
So, Courtney Ryland is here with the rehabilitation.
okay, the next one is,
Right, she's not here, but Courtney Ryland is here.
okay, all right. So our next item of business is the report from Louisiana Rehabilitation Service, and the chair recognizes Ms. Courtney.
Hi, thank y'all so much for having me. So I'll be representing Louisiana Rehabilitation Services. My name is Courtney Ryland. I'm a bureau administrator for the agency. So if you have access to viewing the report that was submitted, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over what's been provided for you. I won't read the charts verbatim. But Louisiana Rehab Services provides pre-employment transition services to students with disabilities between the ages of 16 and 21 with an active individualized education plan or who meet the definition of a student with a disability as covered under Section 504, who is a student who has a documented disability. Pre-employment transition services include job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling on post-secondary opportunities, workplace readiness training, and training on advocacy. Right now, Louisiana Rehabilitation Services is serving 3,318 students statewide. And I'll just want to note that that's actually up 1,518 students since last March. We currently have 14 active third-party cooperative arrangements with local or state educational providers to provide these services to our students in the classrooms. So that's kind of like a contract with the school board for them to employ someone to provide these students with the pre-ed services. And Louisiana is helping to pay for those employees.
What and Courtney?
Are you asking a question?
No, we don't have questions right now. We're gonna let her finish her report.
Sorry.
All right, so again, we provide some more data on students being served and other individuals being served. I will take of note that we have a new rehabilitation employment development specialist who began serving the Lafayette region starting in November, but we still do not have a specialist to serve the Homa region. So if anyone knows of someone who may be interested in that position, it is still vacant. The Louisiana Rehabilitation Council, the report indicates that the meeting that was scheduled for April 27th has been postponed. That has been rescheduled. It will take place on May 18th, and it will be held at the Louisiana Workforce Commission headquarters building. The executive committee meeting starts at 8 o'clock, and the full Louisiana Rehab Council meeting begins at 9 o'clock. For those who are attending. That council is still seeking to fill 5 vacancies. And the report lists which of those positions that they're still trying to fill. And since the beginning of this calendar year, which was January 1st, we have an employee housed within LRS who became certified as a community partner work incentives counselor, and she has served 28 LRS consumers directly with regarding benefits with their Social Security, disability insurance, and supplemental insurance. But we still also provide informed choice to allow our consumers to use either Lighthouse for the Blind or LSU Human Development Center, depending on where they live. Louisiana Rehab Services also has an update for the Disability Innovation Fund project, or otherwise known as STEM Up. And STEM is STEMM, which represents science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medical curriculums. We've got an update that Dr. with Southern University is actually going to retire at the end of the spring 2023 semester. But we have been assured by Dr. Sandra Brown at Southern University that they are committed to honoring the subcontract agreement and all the deliverables upon Dr. Kundu's retirement. So Michigan and Louisiana are still working together to move forward with providing the social cognitive career theory intervention to job seekers. And they're going to be using a virtual platform called Yes LMS. They've been discussing what audience would be able to access that platform and how the training module would be accessed by each participant. And Southern University has actually already hired and has begun training career pathway coordinators who will be actually interacting directly with the students participating, and the regions being served by those career pathway coordinators are New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Monroe. So if there are any questions regarding the report from Louisiana Rehabilitation Services.
All right, thank you, Courtney. Are there any questions from the council member? Any questions from the council member?
No.
I have something. Courtney, it's not about your report, but yesterday, the Youth Leadership Forum gave an update about the people who were the young people who potentially would be attending. And what they reported on LRS was kind of troubling to me. First off, none of the ones who had applied are pre-eds or in pre-eds, and they're all in that age range and all have disabilities. And so which is troubling that you have probably a population of young people who are probably engaged more than typically from across the state, and none of them are in the pre-eds program. So that's kind of like an outreach issue that was concerning. But then the other thing is that it didn't appear, and just this is my interpretation, I think if they're not in it, then LRS could say, let's get those students in pre-eds because they're eligible. They should be eligible. Let's try and fast track it. But it seemed like that's not what the youth leadership forum, the information they got back was any type of like outreach or help. It was just kind of like, I don't know what LRS said, but it wasn't helpful. And then there was kind of like an interpretation that it's a long, arduous process to get into pre-eds. And I didn't think that's the case for pre-eds. Now, when you get into voc rehab, it's a little bit more developing a plan, right?
Correct.
But pre-eds is pretty simple.
Correct.
Okay, so like, I would like to see LRS partner with that contractor to help that group of students to get into pre-eds. I think there's multiple reasons for that, but those students, it would kind of help to be able to see them to be able to understand about LRS, which these students potentially will be able to use those services in the future. Plus, I know there's some requirements for the pre-eds, for LRS to spend 15% of their budget on pre-eds. So that would help them to meet that federal goal as well. So there's a bit mutual benefit, I think, to everybody.
Right.
So can you check in on that?
Absolutely. Yes, the application and or eligibility process for becoming a pre-ed type is much easier and less complex than our traditional vocational rehab program. Absolutely.
All right. Is there any public comment? Right? There no public comment. The report requires no action and will be placed on file.
Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry, y'all, we just have to skip around because some people are not here, so we're just skipping around right now. Our next person is gonna, that we were sending a report, is gonna come from the Bureau of Health Services and Finances, Medicaid, and Tangela Womack. I said that correctly, Liz? All right.
How are you all? My name is Tangela Womack. I'm Medicaid Deputy Director. And our report is on the light blue. And your program have it. Of course, the report includes several updates and data points on a couple of our programs, like the CFOC program and some network adequacy for behavioral health. It also talks about our Act 421 program. If you're not familiar with it, it's for children under the age of 19 with developmental disability, and it disregards family income. And since March 17th of this year, we have approved 989 children for that program, with approximately 268 of our applicants going through the level of care assessment. 2 points that I would really like to discuss with you guys today is number one, the 2023 Consolidated Appropriations Act, or the CAA. And what that act does is end the continuous coverage that we were allowed by the Family First Coronavirus Response Act for the PHE. So it ends continuous coverage, which means Medicaid is about to have to go through a renewal process for all over 2 million of our members. And what that means is we're trying to connect with you guys who have Medicaid, because we have not had to reach you in 3 years. So if you've seen some of our billboards or handouts, I've seen some in pharmacy. Coming in this morning, I saw one of our billboards. We're trying to make sure that we have all of our Medicaid members with accurate contact information. So if you're receiving text messages that say, hey, we need your updated address, we need your phone number, we're trying to reach you guys. We're trying to make sure that when you get that letter from us saying we need additional information, that we get that in and you don't lose the coverage that you desperately need. So we have outreach, we've contracted with outreach coordinators and community partners, going door to door, just making sure we have the right contact information. We have some people putting signage up in pharmacies, Walmart, just going where our members are. And if any of you have any events coming up and you'd like for us to come and speak, or just to come out and get that updated contact information from the members in person, we can definitely do that. And Amy can share my contact information with all of you. On page 3, it also lists how you can do it yourself. Just to verify that we have it, you can log on to mymedicaid.com. You can email us, and the email address is there. File your health plan, there's a number on the back of the card. Of course, we have a hotline, and the number is here, and in person at our regional offices. Also, again, we can come to you guys if you have any events going on where you think that the Medicaid population is there. We're happy to come out and actually take down their contact information in person. For the first batch, one thing I want to make clear, everybody will not be reevaluated at the same time. So they're going to be in cohort, and it's going to take us 12 months to reevaluate everyone. Our first will start effective May 1st. So those letters will be mailed out at the end of April, at the end of this month, and it'll be dated May 1st. So if you're starting to get those letters, that means it's time for your renewal. We need information to make sure you're on our roll. But yeah, if you have a cell phone, if you've gotten a text message or even an outbound dialer, it's probably not a scam. It's probably us trying to reach you. We need your updated contact information. And if you have any questions about that, these contact information on page 3, you can definitely check here. And Amy, if you guys would like for us to bring any flyers, it has the QR code on it. It'll take you directly to where you can update your contact. I can provide it for you.
Great.
And the second thing is provider enrollment. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard this quite a bit. It's a really big push now because we have a huge deadline for all of our providers to be enrolled by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 31st. So we're asking for any providers to make sure you have a complete application in by June 20th to ensure that you continue to get the reimbursement that you need for seeing our members. Louisiana actually has over 85% of our providers that have completed enrollment, which is great. But we still are doing a big push for that. So we are reaching out to providers. You may see some of our flyers in your doctor's offices or in hospitals where we're trying to get their contact information as well and get them re-enrolled into our program so that we can continue to see our members and you'll have access to the care that you need as well. But with those 2 points made, I'm happy to take any questions that y'all.
All right, well, thank you for your report. At this time, we're going to be entertaining questions from the council members.
Okay.
I saw a hand. I didn't see who it was.
Oh my God. Jill,
Ms. Jill, you have the floor.
okay, so I call because this is so the consolidated care act appropriation and that's the pink leather campaign.
That is, so one of our outreaches is the pink.
Okay.
Correct.
And then I was thinking, and Miss Nicole Forrest, I mean, you as a volunteer, because don't our FHF centers do a resource fair in every parish?
We have resource workshops with our Bureau of Family Health contracts.
Okay, because I didn't know if ours was statewide or just Jefferson Parish, but I thought families had a resource fair, and I thought that may be a good opportunity for y'all to have a booth for self-advocate and parent, because y'all, it took me like it took me a minute and I made my support coordinators stay on the phone with me to make sure I was doing the right thing. But if there are any type of resource fairs out there, I was thinking there could be, could be booths for for managing, helping or directing self-advocates and parents to say, hey, this is what you need to do by this date.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there are any fairs, if you can get that information to Miss Amy and she can get it to us. We are going out into the communities, and any health fairs that we're aware of, we are setting up booths and we can help you in person there. So it'll be a good resource person who could update the information right there for you and even let you know when you'll be up for renewal.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can share those dates with me, we'd be happy to come out and set up.
Okay, so if Ms. Flores wants, because I know it's done in my region, but are we still the only PTI in the state?
That's the, Greater New Orleans, they have the PTI.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't remember if it was statewide or just region. I'm in Jefferson, like I'm used to saying as each of Jefferson. I don't live in Greater New Orleans. I don't live in Jefferson either, but whatever.
Do we have anyone else from the council?
Thank you.
Oh, you do, all right, Mr. Taylor, you have to.
I'm in a complex of a bunch of elderly and disabled. Would y'all come to a complex, or how would y'all have to do
When you say a complex, tell me where you're located.
housing?
Okay, I can definitely check with what is it in this region?
Yeah.
I can find out what our regional areas can set up for you guys. Could you tell me where it is? Or if I can get it from Miss Amy too, either way.
Okay,
We're happy to come out to where you guys or to make sure we get that.
yeah, cause a bunch of them is disabled in there and a bunch of them don't have transportation. And I know a bunch of them gonna need assistance with this, and majority of them have problems with stuff like this. So
Understandable.
if I can get to you guys and y'all can set up in the complex, talk to the manager, because I see they do a bunch of stuff in the complex. I was wondering if y'all guys would be interested to come in the complex and do something like this.
I can definitely follow up with you all. And that's a good idea to provide to our regions because those are the guys who are out doing the work. And I'm not sure if that's something they're already doing, but I can definitely.
Because I know, I don't mean to cut you off, man, because I know when people knock on your door and say, this is this, and we need to show you this, a lot of people just not gonna do it. But if it's in the community area, like we got a community spot where everybody meets. If y'all set it up in that community, then they know, hey, they out here really doing this. But if somebody just knocking on your door and saying, hey, okay, we Medicaid, too many people running from that. But I think if we could set something up with you guys where y'all is dealing with the complex and let them come to y'all, then people knocking on the door, that would that would be better for them.
Yes, I'm definitely, I'll make sure I get that with Amy. And if you guys have any other ideas where we can reach, Medicaid members where they are, I understand the transportation, I understand everybody doesn't have the technology. Yeah, any other ideas you all, the council would have where we can meet our members, that's great. Please share.
All right, do you have any public comment? All right, well.
One more question, Gerard, if you don't mind. You gonna be here at the end of the meeting or you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Right, there's no public comment on the report requires no action and will be on file. The next item of business on the report is the Office of Public Health. The chair recognizes Ms. Patty Ferravecchio for her.
Cannot please, cannot please, and I'm sorry, Miss Patty, but it's Dr. Ferravecchio.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Miss Patty. It's been bugging me.
Patty is just fine. So thank you. I'm from the Bureau of Family Health. And for those of you who are new to the council, the Bureau of Family Health is the bureau under the Office of Public Health that administers the Title V block grant maternal and child health program. And underneath that program is the Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs programming. So we are the bright orange or gold colored. And the Children's Special Health Services program has traditionally throughout the state provided subspecialty services for children and youth with special health care needs in areas where there lacks provider adequacy. I'm happy to report that over the time, some of those clinics have been able to ship those children to care in the community with a provider that is located where they habitate. So, but there are still some subspecialty services around the state, and you can see that reflected in the Children's Special Health Services clinic area. We also sponsor a family resource center, and this is for any family statewide. They can contact the Family Resource Center either by phone or by email. There's somebody manning the phones 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And this is for any resource need that touches a child or family. We use a very holistic approach through our Family Resource Center, that anything that impacts that family will impact that health outcome. So they can call for just about any reason. And we also have a collaborative project with Families Helping Families. Through that work, we do provider education. Right now, several of the Families Helping Families are sponsoring provider education events, as well as family education events, promoting early childhood development topics. We also sponsor a transportation assistance program. So a family of a child with special health care needs transportation to a medical service that where other transportation services like through Medicaid are not feasible for this particular use. There is a special stipend program to support those families. We also administer the Louisiana Birth Defects Monitoring Network. So we do birth defect surveillance, and there's some information on the 2022 findings. We also sponsor the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program, Louisiana Hands and Voices, which is a peer support organization for that population. The Louisiana Commission for the Deaf, and you can see all of that information is listed in the report. We do home visiting, published the Louisiana Early Childhood Risk and Reach Report in 2021. And we also have a Young Child Wellness Collaborative that is the advisory body for our early childhood comprehensive systems work. But overall, our mission for children and youth with special health care in the state is to ensure a high functioning health system to support them and their needs. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, Thank you, Dr. Vecchio, for your report.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any, questions about the council member? Do you have any from the public? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can you come up and state your name?
What Region 6, I was gonna comment on you, Patty. We handle the transportation part of that. They just got off a conference call this morning, that's why I played. And I want to make sure everybody knows that plenty of money is finding the people who want to take the time to apply to get transportation to that route, Orleans, food, hospitals, as far as the hotel rooms. There's money there. And there's a lot of it, but it just happens to identify it. It seems to be complicated for these people because they first have to go through the Medicaid system.
Right.
And sometimes when they first go to the Medicaid system, they just drop the ball right there because of. So we're there. If you have any ideas, I guarantee you, we're open. The amount of money that's there is not being used.
Can we get information about that? Because if that's the case, then perhaps the BD Council or even like my office, like we can. I kind of knew, I've heard Jim talk about it before. But I think that if there's a problem with people accessing it, that if we maybe gave more information, that'd be helpful.
So, yeah, I'll send you, I'm sure they have it in the Children's Special Health Services information online. So yeah, if you want to help promote it. The thing is that the way it goes is that it goes through Medicaid first. And as Jim said, a lot of times families, whether they perceive that as a barrier, don't go through the process and come back, but the monies are there. The eligibility criteria is the same as for any Children's Special Health Services service. Like they have to meet the eligibility criteria there. And then if they do so, they can access those funds. So yeah, I will make sure I get you that link.
So those people who are accessing the Children's Special Health Services, like they're in the system, as I understand it, and they're seeing people. So I seeing the specialists.
Yeah, specialty
So
providers.
they should be getting counseled on all the resources that are available.
Absolutely, they are.
They're aware.
There's social workers and nurses in the public health unit clinics. So yeah, they provide them. I would say it's probably not that population because they're very well connected to the system and the supports.
Mhm.
I would say it's probably more community dwellers that are not seeing specialty providers because there's a very small number. I don't know it off the top of my head. I can get that count, but it's not a huge number of the population that are now being served. They're actually being served by subspecialists and specialists in their communities.
So. I knew him in touch, then, so these stipend expenditures are from the fund Mr. Sprinkle was talking about.
Right.
Okay.
So Mr. Sprinkle's Families Helping Families, the Bureau has a contract with them.
Okay.
And they administer the transportation program.
Are y'all cross or?
Yes,
Okay.
Can I make one more comment on that? There are loopholes for these families that they need. I'm gonna just mention one of them. The requirements are you have to have a denial from Medicaid. And if you need more than one person to go with you, that automatically makes you qualify. So, and my child was alive, we always had to have two people. We would have qualified for that one time. If you only have one person, automatically qualify. So there's little loopholes you can get through. It just has to matter of finding it.
Okay.
Is that okay to say, Patty?
All right, is there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. All right, our next item of business is the Office of Aging and Adult Services. Chair recognizes Ms. Mindy Richard to present her report.
Thank you. And I hope you all can see me down there. Yeah, I'd like to give you some activities that we've been engaged in that you would have interest in. The numbers are actually on this peach colored sheet in your package. And I'll address some of these as we talk, but certainly I'm open to any questions about the data. But programmatically, I wanted to tell you a few things that we have going on. And you'll notice maybe that our registry wait list growing very quickly. We saw that so we kind of talk about our wait list for community choice waiver in two terms. We talk about those who are waiting for CCW waiver, a community choice waiver. And then we talk about the subset of those people who don't have any other services. We haven't been able to put them on another program since they have no services. So those two numbers for as of last week or the 28th, we have 7,149 people waiting for a community choice waiver, but of those 3,000 have no other services in place. That 3,000 number had actually gotten below 900 as recently as October of last year. So you can see that our wait list has tripled in just a matter of months. And we don't know the entire, we look at the kind of the trend of what we see in a year. And we do see this time of the year that those numbers go up, but it has gone up dramatically from what we've seen in the last few years. So the trend is much higher. We attribute that to two things really. And this is anecdotal. But we attribute it to now that COVID has subsided, people are wanting to have services in their home and they're wanting to get more services. And secondly, we put out a pretty concerted effort to make people aware of the services that we offer. We think that that's positive that people know about the services. But of course, we get stressed when we start seeing that number climb faster than we can supply the services. Our waiver slots, we have filled this last year, we got 500 additional waiver slots, and we have filled all of those. And that's a good segue for me to talk about. Well, let me say one other thing. You all meant on our last meeting, I mentioned our business plan, our LBH business plan, and each office within LBH has certain initiatives that we're working on. And one of the things we're working on is that when we mail someone a letter that says, hey, your shipment's come in, you know, that we have a waiver just for you. But we need you to get in touch with us so that we can go through the process of putting you into the services. We don't get a very good response rate at all. And so one of our business plan items is how do we increase that response rate? And one of the activities that we did was we called people that we had mailed the letters to and had not heard back from. And what we learned from that, just kind of high level, is that number one, a lot of people either didn't get the letter, it got tossed in the trash because they didn't know what it was, or they opened it and really didn't know what to do with it. And our population typically we learned from this, want to be spoken to. They want a human to talk to them about what that's about. So we are working towards trying to address that with not face-to-face, but phone conversations with those. So going forward, we have our first batch going out this week. There are two things we'll be doing differently. We will be sending those offers in a bright blue envelope. And then we will also be calling those folks that we sent it to say, did you get it? And if you did, do you know what to do with it? So, I mean, I think that this personal outreach is going to be successful, but we're kind of conducting it almost as an experiment. We're watching the data to see if this makes a difference. So I'll be interested in our next meeting for any of you who hear about this to let us know what you're hearing in the community and has this made a difference? Because we don't want to prevent or delay getting services to someone just because they didn't know their waiver was offered to them. So I think that's an important thing. Another thing I want to mention with regard to just numbers is that when you look at adult protective services, those numbers are not anything different than what we've seen in previous years. We're not seeing any trends, any different, anything different than what we've seen. So nothing really to report there, but I did want to point out another activity that we've done. You can kind of see a common theme in this is our philosophy is that we need to be out in the community and we need to be talking to people and we need to be finding out from people what we are doing well and what we need to do differently or do better. And sometimes we think inside this arena of work that we do, that we think we know what people need, but until we go out and talk to people, we really don't always have we don't have the information. And so we're doing right now, we just concluded last week, a statewide tour in all of our 9 public health regions. And we called it a listening tour with regard to abuse and neglect. So we had partners with elderly protective services, as well as my office's adult protective services. And we went out and we had meetings in the community. One of the things we learned in our very first meeting was that our population of people don't readily jump in the car and go to a meeting in the middle of the day at the library. So we are having a virtual meeting. We have one tonight and we have one next Wednesday. And again, I'm happy, Amy, we should have shared that with you. Do you have the information on those 2 virtual meetings?
I believe I got an email earlier this week about one.
Okay, it would have been from Giselle, her first name, but we can share that. But basically, this is what I call voice of the customer. It's an open dialogue conversation where we say, have you had any interaction with adult protective services? If so, was it good or not? What do we need to do differently? And the second part of the conversation is, how do we need to educate people about what we do and how we do it? Most people don't know. They may be reticent to file a complaint because they don't know what happens when that when that occurs. And so this is not about necessarily educating people on that, although we provide whatever information we need to. But it's also about finding out, how do we get that information out? And so we're learning a lot of feedback on how best to communicate with our communities on these topics. It came out of some discussions last summer with some of our legislators who said, what is our community outreach? And we really do dozens of outreach opportunities, but the word wasn't getting to the right people. People didn't know about them. And so we're trying to improve that. So just if you see those opportunities to give us feedback, please let us know. We have had parents from the DD community come to our events. And so I'm real pleased about that. And we've learned a lot. And so I think from my point of view, it's been very successful. The numbers, we have not had a lot of people engage, but the people who engaged were very open and it was very healthy conversation. So wanted you to know about that. And on the legislative front, there is a request for 500 more additional community choice waivers. It was heard in the House Appropriations Committee this week and seemed to be favorable, so we're optimistic about that. There's also a bill to create a community choice trust fund, much like we have for the Now Trust Fund. That also was heard yesterday, and it seems to be moving along the process well. I will point out too, in our traumatic head and spinal cord injury program, THSCI is the letters we use. In that program, one of the impacts we had during COVID was that that program is funded through traffic violations, such as driving while intoxicated, reckless driving, and the monies that come from that then fund services to people in our program. But during COVID, a lot of the courts were not being held, and so therefore they were not collecting those fees, and so therefore it hurt our funding. And last year, Senator Price did a line item in the budget to give us additional money to kind of fill that gap. But it also gave us additional money so that we could open up cases that had grown on this wait list. And so we have offered services to 100 new participants because of that funding. We're optimistic that that might happen again this year with Senator Price. There's been some discussion, so we're optimistic about that. Let's see, another thing is that I just wanted to double down on what Tangela was saying about the Medicaid unwind and the need to go in and update information. One thing I always try to point out too is one of the things about the Appropriations Act, there were 2 points. One was we had to do all this redetermination. The second part of it was if we don't have 2 forms of contact for people, then we can be fined as a state. And if we get fined, that money is going to come out of other programmatic activities. And so it has 2 prongs. Number one, we don't want individuals to lose services. That's number one. Number 2 is we need to have those 2 contacts, or if we don't, we can be, there could be financial penalties on that. So anything you can do to help us, it is really an all hands on deck effort here to get that information in our system. The last thing I'll talk about is our American Rescue Plan Act. Many of you are aware of, there were several initiatives within our spending plan. And one of the most recent ones that had to, was delayed and is the bonus payment to direct service workers who worked during the pandemic. And so we had to do some revisions on it, send those revisions back to CMS for approval. We got approval last week on that. We had already kind of leaned forward in getting all the programming with the computers together to issue those payments. And we expect those bonus payments to go out by the end of May. There will be webinars that are held to explain how the logic behind all of who gets what and where the check goes. But we are really anxious to get those checks out and happy that those payments are going to finally be made. And I think that is it. We do have some other activities with the American Rescue Plan Act that we submitted, and we're still waiting to hear back from CMS, but I'll wait until those are approved to share those with you maybe next meeting. But thank you, Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you, Ms. Minsky, for your report. Do we have any council members that have any questions upon the report? All right, Ms. Jill, you're recognized.
Me again, are the bonus payments retroactive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They will be paid from April of 2021 through October of 2022 for direct service workers and support coordinators under some rules that they have. They have to have a certain number of activity, but it's who worked during that time. I will say that one of the things that, this was really derived to increase the number of direct service workers, the retention that we have for direct service workers. And so from the Medicaid population of direct service workers through our system, we will say who is a direct service worker as of March. And if they worked those time periods, then those checks go to those employers for March. So there's a lot of rules surrounding how that's going to work. And I don't want to bog our meeting down today, but I would say, please join the webinar or have people join the webinar to learn exactly who gets the check for whom and for how much. There will be quite a bit of rules because again, it has to be very structured how that's rolled out, but it's finally happening.
Okay, so and which information that you're talking about is going to be on the virtual meeting on the 18th? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the virtual meeting on the 18th is talking about abuse and neglect.
Yeah, but the one that you're talking about right now that you want people to be engaged in, can you give us that date?
Yeah, it's tentatively being set up for March 4th, but I don't have that confirmed. I'm sorry, May 4th. Thank you. May 4th, but I don't think that invitations have gone out and I don't think the Zoom has been set up yet. So tentatively May 4th, but it'll be coming out very soon to an email near you to let you know about that. So please join.
So this is different from the OCDD road shows that she just had, correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do we have any more questions from the council? Andy?
And this table right here makes us ask questions, I think. But on the table. So the direct service worker bonus that you're just talking about, that's OCDD and DD and long-term personal care, that's all
Yes,
together.
ma'am.
Anybody who worked as a direct support worker in any of those systems
Yes, ma'am.
would be eligible if they meet all the criteria.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct. Okay. And then the other question that I had in regards to, you talked at the beginning, you talked about the letters going out to people who get community choice waiver offers, and then sometimes people don't return them, that type of thing. Are those people taken off the list? What happens? I know you said there's some outreach, but then eventually what happens?
So they stay on the list, and I believe they stay on the list for, I have to double check it, but I think it's 90 days.
Okay.
But even if they fall off the list after 90 days that we haven't had a response, if they call in, we immediately put them back in and they immediately are given an offer. And so I have to double check the 90 days, but yes, they stay on the list. We're just trying to work them to get them off the list and into services.
So those people who, got an offer a year ago. And then they're like, oh, I need this service. They call and say, hey, what's my status? And they say, oh, you got a letter sent to you a year ago.
Right.
Would they get an offer if a slot's available?
Yes,
Okay.
they would get an offer.
Okay.
And I will say that when we talk about our slots, there's a percentage of, I think it's 3% of our slots that are kind of held over here in reserve for just that situation. So when someone calls, we pluck it out of there and go.
Okay.
Right? Yes, sir.
So, if you know a person, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
if you know a person that need this service, what do you have to do here?
So we have a number, a number you call, and it's a vendor that we pay, and they kind of go through all the information that we need and kind of do preliminary screening process. And we can share that number again, Amy. I'll provide it to you again, but we can blast that out to the council as well. But it's kind of I'm gonna call it a gateway to come in to tell us that you need service. Okay, great.
Do we have any public comment? All right, if there's not any public comment, the report requires no action and will be placed on file.
Julie.
I'm gonna use that. Sorry, it's okay.
I can figure out how to be in.
Actually, they just added another meeting, so 4.
Yeah.
Am I up?
Yes, ma'am, you ready? Okay.
Julie,
Our next item of business is our,
and that we have a webinar on May 4th, tentatively on May 4th. And there were a few questions about that. Just wanted to. Okay.
And so I'll start by, I truly do apologize. I was the National Advisory Council on Individuals with Disability and Disasters public meeting, and so I'm a voting member, so I had to step out for that one as well. So, but I do apologize. My report is I think everybody knows my report. A couple of other, I'm not going to read it, but a couple, and happy to take any questions about the report, but just a couple of highlights in addition to what Minnie mentioned about bonus payments. We've talked a lot about the American Rescue Plan Act. That's part of what we're able to fund the bonus payments from. But we've also talked a lot in here about, we were working to get a contract with the Center for Start Services, which will be working directly with us. It really got national best practice. They showed some really great outcomes for supporting folks and helping states figure out how to support folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as behavioral health concerns. So some of our internal teams that'll be working on the project are going to go through 4 intensive trainings in May with the Center for Start Services. And then in June, we'll be beginning our stakeholder outreach for that. And a lot of folks that are on or part of the council be getting some invitations to be able to participate in that. What they do is talk to stakeholders, try to get a feel for what's working and what's not working in our state as it relates to services for that specific population. And then they help us really develop a plan. We do know off the bat and have already also has some funding that we have a great need for what we're calling therapeutic crisis respite. Those people who end up in the hospital, in the emergency room for a long time because we can't find an appropriate place for them very quickly. And then if they do end up maybe in a psychiatric facility, then it's usually just medication management, but maybe not other things that are truly designed at treatment to help those folks. So we know, and we already have funding, and we will be working with them to talk about the best way to be able to set that program up. So I'm really excited that we finally got the contract, finally got that through, and we're ready. We've been talking about starting this with START for about 5 years now. So I'm happy it's like, we're finally doing it. I'm super excited and hopeful for what we can bring. The other part of the American Rescue Plan Act that might be of interest to you, we had gotten the ability to use our funding to do some training for dentists in the community to be able to increase access for dentists to be able to have their practice work for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we were able to add that as a service. We did a training at the statewide national Louisiana Dental Association. We plan to do another one at the Louisiana Dental Association, but they also reached out to us. Apparently there's kind of the statewide dental association, and then each region has regional dental association-ish things. I don't think they're all formal, but we've had outreach to all the regional folks, and we had enough funding that we could actually sponsor. They do some like quarterly meetings in person. So we're also helping to sponsor some trainings at those regional meetings, which is a little bit more intimate setting. So we were really excited about that. More in the process of getting those scheduled now. A quick update on our post PHE, and I mentioned this earlier, but again, I do encourage folks, if you were not able to participate in a roadshow or the webinar, it should be recorded. I could talk for hours and hours about what will happen after the pandemic, but please do focus there. I can share with you that we had over 800 people in person at those events, and we had over 500 people on our webinar participate, and that doesn't count people who've now gone to our website and viewed it. I had a lot of positive feedback from people that they heard the same message. So a lot of times we don't have opportunities where our providers, our people receiving services, our family members, our case managers, our local governing entities have an opportunity to hear the same message all at the same time. And a lot of times people tell me it gets interpreted differently when we have different audiences. So we felt like, having that many people attend, it's obviously something that we need to repeat. It's something, if people took the time out to come to our meeting, it's important to people. So we are looking at doing another roadshow. I don't have the details of that yet, but in September, knowing that a lot of our exceptions are coming to an end in November. So we want to make sure if there's any outstanding questions that we do any, last kind of discussion of that. We also have several other topics that we would like to dive into in more detail. So we're in the planning phases of that. And then one of the things I've told my team is like twice a year, I think it's important that we do this so that folks can hear the message, from our office. And then just one other announcement, and then I'll stop and see if people have questions. We do, I think everyone knows the Early Steps program. We do report and hear on our Early Steps. Our director for Early Steps, Brenda Sharp, who's been the director for, I think, over 17 years, is retiring. She's actually leaving at the end of this month. And I'm super excited to announce that Carolyn Naylor Oglesby, she's actually a Louisiana resident and a proud graduate of Southern University, had left Louisiana to go to Arizona. And she was serving as the Early Steps director in Arizona. And when we announced it, she applied. And when I spoke with her, she's like, I've always wanted to come back to Louisiana, but I had to get my kids out of school. So she has come back. She started Monday. I would have brought her with me today, but she started Monday. So she's still trying to to get acclimated to everything. So at the next council meeting, I'll bring her and introduce her, let her introduce herself to everybody. But we're super excited, excited to have her on board. So with that, I'll stop and see if people have questions for me about the report.
All right, thank you, Ms. Julie, for your report. We will be entertaining questions from the council regarding her report. No question. The council, okay, any public comment?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Lydia, you're recognized.
Julie almost thought she was getting.
Don't feel bad for you. I had to be in 4 places.
We were.
It's a one simple question. So I'm having discrepancies with for my own self, with my daughter having a waiver. So we do the children's choice waiver where I basically get paid to take care of her for, the minimal hours. Is that a tax deductible? Can it be for taxes? Can they count that as an income?
So we've gotten that question a lot, and I'll be honest with you, that's not something that like I am able to answer, because that's the IRS rules, and I don't know the IRS.
IRS will say, no, they cannot count it as an income. But we just need to find, because there are so many parents that we are being docked for that because CPAs are considering that as a taxable income.
Yeah, and I can take that back. When I got the question a couple of times and I brought it to legal, it's hard for us to answer the question because we make the payments, they're Medicaid payments, they're made to people. But then how that, what is, we get questions all the time. Is there anything that can be a 1099 versus a W-2 and how is it reported? And we have to be very careful because we're not the governing entity for any of those. So I can take it back and see if there's anything additional that we may be able to do or any other departments that we may be able to reach out to get that information. And from the provider perspective, I don't know what they have to do or what their rules are, if it's a parent working for the provider agency, and I don't know what exactly happens even in terms of our self-direction. So I can take that back, but I thought that it had to be reported because it's working, but then what happens with that is the part that I'm not totally sure on. I will try, but again, I don't know that I'll be able to get an answer on that one.
All right, is there any more comment? If there's not any more comment, the report is requires no action and will be placed on file. So our next item of business is the report of Government Office of Elderly Affairs. The chair recognizes. Oh, she's not. Oh, I'm sorry. That's convenient. Okay, our next agenda item is the Governor Office of Disability Affairs, and the chair recognizes Ms. Bambi for to her reports.
My report is the green report. There you go. Okay. So a few things I just want to highlight. We're doing our GOTA conference, our office's annual conference. It'll be completely virtual. Again, it's the last week of July to coincide with the signing of the ADA, anniversary of the signing of the ADA. We have received a lot of proposals, which we're really excited about that. Typically we haven't really do a lot of outreach, but we've received several proposals, and really, I think it's gonna be engaging like it is every year. And we'll be sending out our newsletter on the 1st of May. And it'll have the link for people to start registering for the conference. And just to remind you guys, you register for the conference, you get one Zoom link, and you can join into whatever sessions you want to join into through that week, whatever your availability or interest, and they're all recorded. So we have, if I ever send you an email, you'll see at the bottom of my email, there's the link to the past 2 years conference. You can go in and look at all the information, all the recordings. So it's really great information. Of course, the legislative session is the second week, and we probably have about 100 instruments that we're monitoring. And at that link, you can see on the report, you can go in and see the tracking list. We try to keep it updated. Multiple times a day, we'll update that tracking list. We also have the positions that the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs took on certain bills, and also our other disability-related agencies, so like the DD Council, the ARC, AARP, Community Provider Associations, any organization that'll tell us what their positions are, we'll put it there so people can see like what, what's the feeling of the disability community, and kind of all work concertedly. So that's ongoing. A couple of other things, the Disability Voting Task Force concluded its work, and that has what? I'm forgetting my words. Anyway, I'd like to thank my two counterpart buddies right here. They served on the Disability Voting Task Force, Jill and Eric, and also I think Lillian back there, which I just want to thank them. The really great thing about the Disability Voting Task Force is that we designed it to be the majority of the people to be people with disabilities. I wish that wasn't something special. I wish that's something that would just be practiced, but I wanted to highlight that they successfully have that task force had majority of people with disabilities. Representative Willard has a bill, which is HB 449, which includes all the recommendations from that task force that was unanimous, supported by the disability advocates as well as the people from the Secretary of State's office and others. And then Representative Glover has another bill that would appoint a person with a disability on the State Board of Election Supervisors. Woohoo! And so really would appreciate all of the organizations to get behind these bills whenever they're heard in committee, and so we can get those things passed. And then, of course, we worked with many of the disability organizations on the Remote Operations of Public Meeting Task Force, which resulted in SB 201 that we talked about earlier. Couple of other things. MDAC, the Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition, is hosting a webinar, Lunch and Learn, on May 4th, Thursday, May 4th. And it's going to be access to assistive technologies in disasters. Latan is going to be doing that presentation. And so I think that's going to be interesting. We just thought that, people get so much information about disasters and how to prepare, and it's kind of just like overwhelming. We thought doing like a little lunch and learn about specific topics might engage people a little bit more. So please help spread the word about that. And also just on a kind of a sad note, many of you may know Gail Dean, who is the director of New Horizons in Shreveport. She was very active in MDAC and just across the state. Anytime that disaster, she would come from Shreveport, and her staff and people would really help out in disasters. She passed away this week. And so
Brandy, I remember her from Silk.
Yeah, she passed away.
Oh.
Yeah. And so just want to let you guys know that. And also, let's see, Liam Doyle is our new Lillian. Took this position that Lillian was in, a senior coordinator. And he is an ADA coordinator, certified ADA coordinator, which is really great, and has jumped into the role. Of course, we miss Lillian greatly, but he's doing a good job. He's doing a great job, and just glad to have him aboard. And I think that's it.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Bambi Pulago, for your report. The chair is going to recognize anybody that has a question about Eric Taylor.
I just would like to ask the board if I'm not asking too much. Can we have a silent moment just for a second for Ms. Gill?
Yeah.
Cause she did. Thank you.
All right, do we have any public comment? All right,
Can I just add one more thing? It's not on our report and I'm so sorry that I didn't. Also, as many of you know, the former chair of the DD Council, who was our current chair of GACTA, Lynette Fontenot, passed away suddenly a month or so ago. And if you didn't know who Lynette was, please research her because she was phenomenal, I think, in kind of the reason why the strength of this council is from, self-advocates like Lynette. So she's a great law.
Tammy, who was that?
Lynette Fontenot.
Do I know her?
She was on GACTA, the chairperson of GACTA for the past 7 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
all right. So this report requires no action and will be placed on file. So our next item of business is a report of the disability rights in Louisiana. The chair recognizes Ms. Roca for his report.
Great, thank you. Mine will be incredibly brief. Just an update from our ombudsman program, just get some information about what we're working on. Between January 1st, 2023 and January 15th, 2023, Disability Rights Louisiana filed 8 formal complaints with the state for issues including possible negligent deaths, financial exploitation, substandard living conditions, course, allegations of severe neglect of health and possible federal fraud. And during the first quarter of 2003, our supported independent living advocacy program opened 7 new cases for assistance and has been assisting with, among other issues, community reentry from Pinecrest, unstable and unsafe living conditions, and unnecessary removal from services.
All right, do we have any questions from the council? Joe, you recognize.
I need him report them because I saw this last yesterday. Why is it only a 13-day gap?
That you'd have to ask the person who wrote the report. That wasn't me. So I used to write the reports, but the person who runs our ombudsman program writes them, and that's the period she chose. I don't know why exactly it's that limited.
I thought it would be like January to March.
I honestly don't know. I didn't write the report. Somebody else did. So
okay.
I hear what Ms. Jewel is saying. Is there a possible way that we could just find out why that is like that 13-day gap? Because that's a concern from the council.
Sure, I'll ask.
Okay, gap was really the wrong word. It should be, I hate when I misspeak. It's a pet peeve of mine, but I meant 13-day period.
Yeah, sure. I'll ask.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Right, do we have any more questions? Any questions from the public? All right, well, this report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is a report is from our Family Health and Family Center, and the chair recognizes Mr. Jim for his report.
A little bit later.
I know.
Anyway, you'll see on this red page, the very beginning of what we're trying to do is tell everyone what Family Health and Families is doing. So it's kind of just a general information page. And so you'll see each center, pick the director, number of employees, whether they own the center, the unduplicated services, 3 months, January through March, and the duplicated services, which is same person multiple times, and what the prevalent disability is for this quarter, and the second prevalent disability report. Those right there, I hope in the next one will also include the last four items as it goes through year by year. How many unduplicated, how many duplicated, what the prevalent disability is. And overall, autism seems to be the number one thing. I am hearing that 1 in 8 kids autism or some autism. That's insane.
Yeah.
So anyway, I promise you all, I did take an agreement, so I'm going to stay to that. But I'm hoping that the next report, if you have any questions on this, keep this for your information because it has everything you need to contact these centers. I'm hoping the next one will have a description. I haven't approved this with the rest of them yet, but a description of the contracts that each center has. And underneath that, a brief description of what those contracts mean, how they serve the community. So anyway, if there's any questions, let me know. And that's my report.
All right.
Less than 3 minutes.
All right, we want to thank Mr. James for his report. And I want to thank any questions from the council, and I saw Ms. Vanity, you had your hand raised to recognize.
Yeah, so two things for families helping families of Northeast Louisiana about the renter on, it has NA. Right here for Northeast Louisiana, do they own or rent purchasing NA?
That they exchange for services.
Okay.
And it shows put in a
Okay.
place for that.
Okay.
And does that mean?
And the second question, or I guess more of a comment, like our council members, would you encourage them if they want to learn more about just what the services of the Families Helping Families to reach out to the Families Helping Family centers in their regions?
Please do, please do. But what you have here is a remarkable set of people that have their hearts in it. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but I know in our center, for example, some of them, I've been there 22 years, some of them are longer than me. They know everything. And they would love to have you reach out to them, every one of them. And I'm hoping, so the next time this comes up, and I haven't talked with anybody yet, so you have to understand that. But for example, one of the contracts will be listed with DDC. Well, heck, what do we do for DDC? What is it? And the description that pertains to each center has that, except for one. And maybe another one would be State Department of Education. And that contract will probably be similar to each one. But there are some that have contracts like I do, and some others have contracts that are different than everybody else. And so we list that for that center, then on the second page would be an asterisk 3, for example, that would say what that contract actually does for the community. And that would carry on the education to that's what we're here for. And if you know what we're here for and you see what we're doing, then it means something. If you don't know what we're here for and you don't see what we're doing, all you hear is rumors or whatever, what good does that do you? All right. So I'm really pleased, thankful that you folks go to let us do this. Thank you. Anything else?
I just want to say something. I really appreciate this because not everybody has it. And now you can go to your region, look at, where it is, the contact information, and just make yourself applicable to the people that's there so you know that you're sitting on the DD council and that you're active and involved and you want to be a part, and whatever they have going on, that you should be a part of it because that's in your region. And family stuff counts out a lot.
To me, this should have been done a long time.
And so we thank you guys. Thank you for giving us this comprehensive document where everybody can go to and look at, maybe want to go into another region. You're able to have that now. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You'll keep track of here on out. I hope. So everybody agrees. from here, every quarter, you'll get an accumulation of these numbers of the unduplicated, the duplicated, prevalent disability, and the not so present.
All right, is there any, public comment? Yes, ma'am.
If I may, my colleague here, then, and I'm Marilyn Thornton from Region 2, here in Greater Baton Rouge area and the parishes we serve. I think what this does is to highlight the fact that you have a resource right among you and the value. We want you to understand the value that Families Helping Families bring to even your council in the decision-making process, because you'll see a variety of programs and resources that are available through Families Helping Families. So when you make those decisions, you might see you may not have to bring on another contractor. You have Families Helping Families that can do some of the work that you're seeking to have done. So maybe in the future, you'll give us an opportunity to share, as Jim was saying, all the different programs. We have some that are different. Nicole is here, and ED in Region 4, I'm 2, he's 6, and others that may have different programs. We even have a statewide program, the Empowerment Program, that could do some of the things that you're asking for, or maybe seeking some outside sources to do. So I think we do lend some value to your decision-making process, and we would like to avail ourselves to share with you all of what we do. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, we have another public comment. Can you,
Let's thank Mr. Jim for doing that. It makes it easier to understand because it's a lot of information to see what each center does. So that just give a little snippet, and it's easier to understand who we are, what we do, and kind of work together. So y'all know where to find us. Let us know how we can.
Wait till next month. When you get the description, what the services are, how are we gonna, ED Council, what do we do for you? It's gonna be put out, basic stuff. I'm imagining it'll be public. Been around.
all right. And thank you for your report. And his report requires no action, so it will be placed on file. Okay, so we have a little bit of a good thing going on. We have actually finished all of our committee reports. And this time I'm gonna be asking people who want to be a part of the nominating committee. Nominating people to be on council. So we need 4 of those. I'm gonna, okay, Bambi says she wants.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Will it be, you have to attend in-person meets in Baton Rouge?
Yes, you will, because that's, the actual bill hasn't passed just yet. So we have to follow what's under law right now. But we're pretty sure it will. So I have 1, you need 3 more.
And if you on the nominating committee, then that means you don't want to be nominated. So people who don't want to be, if you want to be nominated, then don't volunteer for this.
Right, but it has to be, and then it can't be someone from a state agency either. It has to be a parent or a self-advocate.
On nominating committee, you could have a city.
Oh, I can't, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought she told me that.
They just can't be an executive officer.
Oh, okay, that was all right. So you just can't be an executive officer, but you can be on that. So we have 1, Bambi.
I'll just pick everybody.
I was about to say, I would pick if, but we don't know who really want leadership positions, so we don't.
Oh, I'll be bugging y'all.
I don't want a leadership position, but I can't come during the week. I can come on like Mondays and Fridays.
Okay, so that could be something that y'all can work out, each committee is different, y'all. We meet at different times with different things, so that's possible. Okay, so we have 2 more. Any takers? Oh, let me see. No. Mr. Tony.
Corey.
Sure.
Okay. And we need one more. Oh, no.
Alright.
You. No. Okay, we'll just have her there. We need one more.
We had 0 self-advocates on the nominating committee.
I really would want one of them.
I got my mind.
I know, so I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to nominating committee. Oh, Miss Vivian. Yes.
Chloe and Young. Rookie.
Would you consider that, Miss Vivian?
I mean, the other thing is that we might want self-advocates to be on the executive committee.
Yes.
No.
So I'm gonna say no for what
Okay.
you just said.
I respect your decision. We have people that want to come up and roll, so I do understand.
I'm being nominated.
I think
Right.
Andy and I should let the executive committee know, because I can guarantee we can do it in 2 minutes.
We got 3.
Can we do 3 and then if maybe somebody who's not here might want to.
I think we can do it that way if they want to come, because we don't have everybody here in attendance for the council meeting. So we'll leave one of the positions open just in case someone wants to okay, just in case somebody wants to participate that was not here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there. My nominating committee is gonna consist of Libby Earhart, Bambi Polazola, and Mr. Tori Roca. And we'll leave a position open for the council members that were not here, that wanted to have the opportunity to be up on there.
We should can we send this email out like today?
Yeah, the people who were not here, I'll email them.
I'm having deja vu. Like it's so bad.
So again, Ms. Mitzi?
No, I just wanted to, I have an answer to the question you asked, and I wanted to make sure I gave y'all the answer before we.
Before we dismiss, what she asked, you can go ahead and address it, go ahead.
Well, that was correct, 90 days. So one of the things I want to say, just to recap, is we mail an offer. If we don't hear back, we mail a second offer. Then if we don't hear back in 90 days, we take the person off. But if they call in, we immediately give them a waiver.
All right, so like I was, thank you, Ms. Mindy. Like I was saying, we have a unique situation here. We have about 10 minutes to lunch. We have to do our public comment. So that's what I was gonna ask everyone, because I mean, we can work through it and just go ahead and do our public comment, and then our meeting will be over.
That's
yeah.
If everyone is in agreement with that, we're gonna move on to our public comment. Yeah, that's rare. Rare.
Can I just say go Nicole?
Okay, so at this time, if there's any other public comment that you guys want to come up, you have the opportunity to come now. And when you do come up, just state your name and you have 3 minutes to talk. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry for hopping up so many times here, but I realized I just wanted to share after we just spoke about families, helping families. I don't know if you guys have access to the Parents Magazine. I only have a few with me if you'd like to have, but this month is highlighting Autism Acceptance Month throughout here. We have for Region 2, we have an ad in here that identifies the kinds of things that we do with families. I blew it up, y'all. Families helping families, just to give you an idea, and I realized I had it with me. We can just kind of pass this around. I have only about 5 of the magazines. You're welcome to it. But it identifies the kinds of things that we do at Families Helping Families. And the other thing that this represents is that this year is our 25th year of operation as Families Helping Families. So we're celebrating the 25th anniversary. We'll be doing some things throughout the rest of the year to engage the community, but also to raise funds for what we do. We touch upon 7 parishes, including having the one contract that we do statewide. There is a tremendous need for more outreach activities that we need to have funded to reach the population, huge population throughout our region, but also statewide. And the other Families Helping Families are also in need of additional support. I want to alert you to the fact that on this Saturday, there's an organization called Spectrum. They're doing a circus on Saturday evening, and they have committed to devote to giving the proceeds from that event to Families Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge. So those of you who are in the area or visiting the area or know someone, please tell them about this. There's a QR code. I have a few of these. I'll just put on the table.
I sit on the board for the Orca Greater New Orleans. Can I pass it to them too?
Please.
I just want funding to become, this is my last month, and I don't know how next year is gonna play, because I have not served 8 years. And every time I voice my concern, nothing's changed.
Well, we're here to provide whatever help or support we can. But I'll have some of these. There's a QR code that you can, I got it upside down. That you can take a picture of and get more information. The information is also on our website with Families Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge.
I try to choose my life, but I'm worried about things. Jumping on everything.
Yeah, well, we want to get more activity out and highlighting inclusion across the board everywhere that I go. And people are focused on what's available for everybody. And I always ask the question, how can you or when will you identify how you're going to approach the needs of those who have disabilities?
Because people like myself, Jill, Halo, Vivian, everybody has a different story to tell. But those people need to be valued. The service needs to be allocated with funds. What's going on in the country is a nightmare. I mean, she has a good story to tell us. He's a good person. You are Vivian. I'm sorry, I just had to let it out. It's just all piling up one.
Well, thank everybody for their concerns, their questions, their comments, their passion about people with disabilities and getting the right services and funding that we need to progress the people with disabilities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other further business?
No, just a couple of announcements. The next quarterly meeting is July 19th and 20th. And council members, please don't forget to complete your financial disclosure forms and get.
All right, we're hearing our business from Ms. Amy, and if there's no objection, our meeting will be adjourned at 11:57 a.m. Rare. My little gal, I'm sorry.
Well.